As an Iowa guy, I wanted to be a part of that.
This is the Hometown Hoops Podcast with Drake Men's Basketball and your host, Michael Admire.
Hey, it is the Hometown Hoops Podcast. My name is Michael Admire here on the Drake Sports Media Podcast Network. We are powered up, as always, by our friends at Learfield. Every episode of the Hometown Hoops Podcast can be found on the Drake Athletics YouTube or Facebook pages. You can also look us up on the free Varsity Network app from Learfield. Just search for Drake Bulldogs on the Varsity Network app, or type in Hometown Hoops Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, make sure to share these episodes too with your friends and family and any Bulldog fan to be able to get to know this team a little bit this summer. Today, assistant coach Tramel Barnes stops by. The Minnesota native made the move to Drake this spring from South Dakota State, coming along with Hendo. He had a couple stops at South Dakota State. We'll dive into that. Coach Barnes also is in charge of the defensive efforts. So we're going to slide onto the defensive end of the floor and learn a little bit about the mentality and the type of player that they recruit to fit the defensive style of this team. Also, we're going to check out how that 13-player roster came about. We're going to get Coach Barnes' thoughts on the first few weeks of practice and much more. So without further ado, let's welcome in Tramel Barnes to the Hometown Hoops Podcast. All right, 2 weeks of practice already in the books. Summer flying by. Tramel Barnes, appreciate your time here. How's everything going for you so far?
Yeah, everything's been great, man. It's been great. Like you said, 2 weeks down so far, and guys are working really, really hard. And it's been one of those things where we had camps, so it's been real busy. The guys been on their feet a lot, pretty much all day, where they were kind of our routine. We've had practices in the morning, then lift, and then camps in the afternoon, and then guys kind of get in the gym by themselves and get shots up afterwards. So it's been a busy 2 weeks, but it's been really good.
All right, what has stood out about this roster and how they look on the court so far?
Yeah, it's unique at today's landscape, college basketball. We've had to sign 11 new guys and had, 2 guys returning from last year's roster here. So you always kind of wonder about how things all work and the connectivity of our guys. And, one thing that was really apparent early is the connection the guys have had already and built over these first 2 weeks. Has kind of come through pretty naturally for them. And that's been really fun to see. It's not always, basketball hasn't always been perfect, and it never is. It's first 2 weeks of the summer, right? But at the same time, like, our guys get along really, really well together. And that's really intentional of the kind of guys we try to recruit. And, we want guys that are going to work really, really hard, guys that are going to show up every day and just kind of be everyday guys. So that's been really, really good. And, we've had some really, really good days in practice. Then we've had some growing moments, but I think, it's not March right now, so you don't have to be perfect. But it's been a really, really fun group to be around. Even off the practice floor, even more. The guys are already joking like they've been teammates for a couple of years. You know what I mean? Like one of those things. So that's been fun to kind of see.
Each of the last 3 years here at Drake, there has been at least 10 new players on the roster. 3 years ago, Darren had to do the rebuild, and he brings in a bunch of new guys, but still Tucker was still on the team. The staff was still here. Last year, new coach, 10 new players, but 4 of those guys from Northwest Missouri State. There were a lot of relationships prior to them getting here, so you could see those 2 years how the relationships were able to take off.
Yep.
For you all, these are guys coming from all over the place. Only one South Dakota State transfer, a couple guys you recruited out of high school that are here. But, everybody else, there have been some relationships in the past. But to get where you're saying with the chemistry already taking off, I feel like that has to come from the type of player you're recruiting, the type of person you're recruiting to make that happen so fast.
Yeah. And, honestly, Hendo is one of the best of just like being a connector. He's such a positive guy. And we do a lot of different things with whether it's, change guys up who they're shooting with and workouts to try to, develop some of that, you know what I mean? Like, obviously they got to do it by themselves too, but as a coaching staff, we can help foster some of that and do little, like this week, I think we're going paintballing with our guys, you know what I mean? Just like certain things like that off the floor to give them some time to connect. And, I know a lot of our guys right now are watching the finals, the NBA finals together that are coming back. We're getting them pizza and just different things like that. You know what I mean? They're making up for some lost time, as obviously being brand new teammates, but the connectivity with this group has been great so far. And we just got to keep building on it.
I want to talk about how you all built this roster, how you all plan on, continuing to move forward this summer and get prepared for next year or for this upcoming season. But one thing I want to do to really dive in here to get this conversation started is to get to know Tramel Barnes a little bit. Native of Minnesota, played college basketball. You've been in the coaching ranks here for a while, had a unique path to get here to Drake. So give us a little insight into what basketball has meant to you growing up and a little bit of your journey to get here to Drake.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been very, very fortunate. I've been around people that love sports just my whole life, whether it's my mom, my grandma, my aunts, my great aunts, like everybody's always loved sports. So I've just kind of been thrown into it from the jump, and growing up in a small town in Minnesota, I was very, very fortunate to, be the water boy as growing up with kind of going through the ranks and climbing up till I got old enough, and my high school coach, Steve Roloff, is near and dear. It was Father's Day yesterday. We were just texting, you know what I mean? I talked to him at least once a month still. So kind of starting through high school is really where it started for me. And luckily we had a lot of success kind of growing up, and it helped develop my love for the game, whether it's, football, basketball, whatever I ran track to in high school. But, my senior year of high school, we had 12 seniors on our team in high school, and we all played from 6th grade to 12th grade, all 12 guys. So it was one of those things where it's like, we kind of started as a unit and kind of continued to grow, and that helped kind of develop some of the love. And like you mentioned, I was fortunate enough to play Division II basketball. I started at Northern State for, a legendary guy, Don Meyer, his first 2 years. And when he retired, I transferred to Southwest Minnesota State and played for Brad Bigler, who, I can consider Biggs one of my best friends, professionally and not just in general. Still get a chance to talk to him a lot, and he helped me grow a lot, obviously as a player. And kind of, I wasn't necessarily going to get into coaching right away. It was something that, I loved hoops. It's one of those jobs where it doesn't feel like a job for me. And he kind of helped introduce that to me. Obviously he asked me my junior year of college if I'd want to, get into coaching and be a GA. And he thought, I would have some, a chance to be pretty good, like have a chance to have a joy in doing it. So I did, and I took on some more responsibility as a player where I was hosting visits as a junior and senior year. So I kind of got to see that a little bit more of like taking recruits out to visit, to dinners and different things like that, and seeing some of the back side that you don't naturally always see as a player. But Biggs was really, really influential in me getting into coaching, and kind of took off from there, honestly.
We had talked a little bit about this prior, but Coach Bigler, it sounds like he had kind of done that with a couple other coaches, and then he gave you your first opportunity to actually be a coach. So, he had kind of fostered some coaches as players first by giving them the opportunity, like you were just saying, to host recruits. And then, after that, bringing those players on full time, and he did that with you as well.
Yeah, at the Division II ranks, there's not, like here we got 7 guys on staff. When I was at Utah, we had 11 guys on staff. There it's just the head coach and then a full-time assistant and a GA. So there's only 3 guys. So I was really fortunate for the Bigs. Like I said, I was 22 when I graduated. I was a GA for 1 year, and then our full-time assistant left and got a new job. So then I was hired full-time as a 23-year-old, and Biggs just kind of threw me into the fire. Like you think you know everything at 23, and you think you have a good grip, and looking back on it, it's like I didn't know anything. And gradually as you go through it and you're thrown into the fire, like he taught me how to do scouts. He taught me, his philosophy with recruiting, and obviously playing there, I had a pretty good recollection of like what our system was. So I knew all that, the terminology I knew. So that was easy for me. But just kind of the scouting and, different aspects of coaching that you don't really think about. And you don't realize as a player how many hours goes into everything, right? Like you really find, like I was 23 and you're like, gosh, I've been working on the scout for like 15 hours, like, you know, whatever that may be over the last couple days. And as a player, you don't, I shouldn't say take it for granted, but you just don't realize how much work kind of goes into it.
So you cut your teeth at the Division II level at the school, Southwest Minnesota State, where you played. And then you have a couple stops with Coach Hendo at South Dakota State. And then you're with Craig Smith at Utah and Utah State. What were those experiences like, getting, into the mid-major and then the high major levels?
Yeah, it's super, I shouldn't say unique, but I've coached at every level, Division II, low major, mid-major, high major. And like I mentioned earlier, I've been super, super fortunate over the years to just really work for good people, whether, it was Biggs, whether it was Craig, Hendo. I've been really, really fortunate with that. And that's half the battle sometimes, you know what I mean? And developing relationships take time, obviously, but just being at different levels and getting to see different things, whether it's like the difference in recruiting at the low major level to the high major level. And just the difference in travel, maybe from low major to mid-major, mid-major to high, there's just a difference in some of that stuff with the resources that you have. So, have been super, super fortunate, like I said, to kind of be at a couple different places, whether it was at South Dakota State for my couple stints or Utah State and Utah with Craig. I learned a ton from all of them, and they're all do things a little bit different, but they all do it what they do at a really high level.
Your most recent stop was at South Dakota State with Coach Henderson. You go there for one season before coming here to Drake. So yeah, I'm just kind of curious, what brought you back to South Dakota State originally, and what is it about Hendo that kind of pulled you back?
Yeah, there was a lot that went into that decision. My wife and I loved it out in Utah. I loved working for Craig. We had our first son book here last June. So that was a big part of it, just like, and being able to be back in the Midwest. And I actually wasn't really looking to come back. Like I wasn't looking, and it just worked out. Like Hendo lost an assistant at South Dakota State, and he called me asking if I knew of anybody. And and from there it just went on and led to me being able to come back. So it was one of those things where it was like I wasn't going to leave Utah because it was a really good situation, and Craig was amazing to me for anything. But then obviously working with Hendo, it was just natural, you know what I mean, as well. I had already worked for him. I knew what I was getting into. I knew the type of program that he led, and I knew the type of guys, whether it was Klink was still there. Brian Peterson, one of my good friends, now the head coach of South Dakota State. So I knew the people there, and I knew what they were all about. So that made the transition pretty easy.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. You mentioned you're now you're a young father, father, 1 year, 1 year in. Congratulations. Happy Father's Day to you as well. But that adds another layer into this coaching world. I mean, you go from Utah to Brookings, now to Des Moines, and all this happened, 3 moves and probably a year and a half. Yeah. That's a lot. So, how have you kind of framed all of that? And, what was it about, coming to Des Moines and, making that leap again, that you wanted to move your family down here?
Bless my wife. Yeah. Like we had Book I think he was born for 2 weeks, and then we moved to Brookings. So we had to drive a 2-week-old 16 hours, or my wife did. I drove with her dad in a separate car. So she had to handle that. But, she actually was a coach before too. So she gets it. It's one of those things and situations when, we went back to Brookings thinking we were going to be there for a while. And then, obviously Hendo had this great opportunity pop up, and it's one of those things. He calls me, and it was just like kind of a no-brainer. Like, yep, we're in. I obviously had to talk to Britt and, kind of explain the situation and everything, but just the reputation that Drake has. And, obviously just working for Hendo again and having that opportunity, it was a no-brainer. I mean, and I've been here for a couple months now, and you can easily tell like this place is where it is because of the people and honestly the fans and the support. It's Des Moines' hometown team is kind of the motto that the university uses, and you can really feel it when you get into Des Moines. And that was something special. And I knew Hendo, and like he said multiple times in the public, like he wasn't taking any job just to take any job. You know, he had many multiple situations where he could have went on to somewhere else. But I think like just being around here, you can see what he saw. And after he's met with Brian, you can kind of see the vision of everything. And this place has been amazing.
All right. So you and your family, well, I guess, is your family in town yet? Have they made the move? Like how are you guys doing on that
yeah,
process?
Good. We just moved it. So we've been about 2 weeks. So
nice.
They've been here 2 weeks. So
that's gotta feel good.
That's been great.
Yeah.
That's been great. It was a tough month and a half, just driving back and forth. And Britt was at home with the little guy, kind of handling that all by herself. So it's been good to have them here and kind of get back situated. Yeah,
it's quite the challenge. Yeah, credit to your wife for making things happen. But man, it has been good having you here and Coach Hendo and the rest of the guys. It's such a good energy. Take us back to April when you guys got here. I mean, how mindful and intentional were you all about the energy you guys brought in? You know, right at the beginning of April.
You know, it's honestly really easy because like Hendo, as you know, the dude's pumped with energy, like nonstop. Like he doesn't have a bad day. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, if he's not having bad days, like and honestly, we're genuinely as a staff, we're just like pretty go lucky, happy dudes. You know what I mean? We're very fortunate to be where we're at. We love what we do. So that's a big passion of ours. So it's easy to have a smile on your face. Now, is every day perfect? No. You know what I mean? Are there going to be some down days where maybe we didn't practice well or didn't play well in a game? Yes, of course. But it's like, why bring negative vibes? Like we're pretty positive staff in general. And I think that's been a big reason of why, you know, Coach Hendo's had so much success because how positive he is. And our guys are just playing with confidence at all times. Like there's rarely an occasion where our guys are like, never looking over their shoulder when they have a turnover or something, like because Hendo's there reassuring them and he's so positive. So it's really easy. You know, it's one of those things where it's our job to be there for our guys, and Hendo lets us that's one of his main things. Like the guys are some of the most important or the most important part of the program. And we're going to do whatever it takes to help them achieve their dreams and make them better people at the end of the day.
I just want to put an example to what you were just talking about there. I saw a moment in practice last week where a player turned the ball over and immediately kind of frustrated with themselves, put their head down, and then start going down, running down the court. But that hesitation of frustration and putting their head down, that player that they were supposed to be defending on the other end ends up with a dunk. Yep. Coach Hendo stops practice and, says, "Hey, I don't care about the turnover. What I do care about is how you reacted to the turnover. Yep. Your guy just dunked. That cost the team twice, the turnover and then the points at the other end." And so, I mean, that message has filtered, not just on the microphone here, but in action, in practice.
Yeah. And Hendo's the best at that. Like I said, and I've said, multiple people have said countless times, like he's going to bring energy no matter what he's doing. A passion for, he's an educator at heart, a passion for people and, growth at the end of the day. Like that's what life's about, right? You gotta learn, you gotta grow. And it's something that, we take on as a staff, which is important to us. And it starts from the top, and Hendo's kind of instilled all that into us.
One of Hendo's quotes at the opening press conference has kind of taken roots within the Drake fan base. And I think it exemplifies perfectly exactly what this group is all about. Hey, we're going to have some fun, but don't get it twisted now. That balance of we're going to have fun, but we're going to be competitive and we're going to work hard. How do you see that in Eric Henderson every single day? And how do you as a coach try to model that as well?
Yeah. Like I said, it's not always going to be rainbows, it's not always going to be perfect. There's going to be days where, a guy's, missing a ton of shots or he's just having a bad day, but you never know what that, like, is that some issues off the court? Is that, I think in developing those relationships with guys, has been really, really big, whether it's just like getting extra shots with the guys, taking guys to lunch, just whatever that may be, just kind of getting to know people. Because like I said, like we mentioned earlier, we've got 11 new guys on this team. So it's one of those things where we have to kind of make up a lot of room and a lot of ground fast. But I think it's really, really important for our staff in general to be there for our guys, to always put them first, and just continue to help them grow at the end of the day.
I love it. All right. I want to continue to kind of stick in that April month.
Yep.
You got 11 positions you need to fill. It takes a lot of work, and you got to do it in a short amount of time. What was the approach through April in the war room, with you and your guys getting to work to build this roster into what it is?
Yeah. Like I said, we try to be super intentional about everything we do. Obviously with recruiting, a lot of it's relationships, and some of the guys we recruited were relationship based. Some of them were not as strong relationships, but it's one of those things where, over time you continue to develop relationships on a daily basis, right? And just being consistent that way. Obviously we had to kind of refill the roster. Obviously the staff here did an amazing job last year, and a lot of those guys went with Ben and them to Iowa, and credit to them. I mean, like I said, little adverb for those guys, like they were some of the best dudes ever. Like they were still working out in our facilities.
Yeah.
It was all good, but like they were talking to recruits for us when we had people on visits saying how great this place was. So it's one of those things where they were amazing people. So we were super intentional with what we needed, what we felt like we had. Shooting is always really, really important to us. We traditionally recruited offense, like really good offensive players that can pass, dribble, and shoot, and then coach defense. But to coach the defense, you also want tough-minded, competitive people. And I think that was something that we really stressed, and we always stress in recruiting, is having competitive, tough-minded guys and winners, and and then guys that have really good feel offensively, that can pass, dribble, and shoot and make decisions, and kind of go from there. So it was a long 3 weeks, or however we did it. But I mean, I think for the most part, we landed. Everyone we brought on an official visit, we landed. So it was one of those things where we were super intentional. We did our groundwork before, and like they were committed very shortly after visiting, if not on the visit. So we're excited. Like I said, it's only the set. We're 2 weeks in. So, we love our guys. We have a ways to go. We got to continue to grow and get better on the floor. But our guys' passion and our guys' competitive spirits has been really, really good so far.
I have made more of an effort, and maybe I'm going to end up jinxing it, but I've made more of an effort to start pounding the table for how good this team could be after watching you guys for a couple of weeks. Because last year, this was my first year kind of seeing a team that I was watching for the first time. Yep. In totality, there wasn't a lot of, I didn't know anything about most of the players on the floor, but what I was seeing was like, all right, this team looks like they could be pretty good. And I just was like cautiously optimistic all summer. I've had that same experience again the first 2 weeks of practice. Like I walk into the gym, I'm like, man, you guys passed the eye test. You can see the connectivity. There's a lot of skill throughout, but then also you walk into the gym and there's age. I mean, there are some veteran players in there that you can feel the leadership. Think of like a Jalen Quinn. I mean, he just like oozes leadership.
Yeah.
And Owen Larson, another guy, talking about some of the guards that you work with. So yeah, I'm not trying to jinx anything, but I'm also want people to get on board to this team right away, because if you're on board from the beginning, that makes the journey much more fun.
Obviously fans impact winning at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And Drake's got a really rich tradition of great fan support. I mean, Gavin on our staff came from Bradley,
Mm-hmm.
and the first couple of weeks, all he could talk about was like how good our fans are, how hard it is to play here. And that's a big reason, why Drake's been so successful. They impact winning. Obviously our guys have to make plays and kind of have to go out there and do their thing, but their fans definitely do impact winning. It's been a good couple weeks though. I mean, our guys are competing, like you said. We've got a good blend of some older guys with Jalen and Jay Sean, Will, Braden Applehunt, like some of those guys that have played in college 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got some younger guys like Griff and Bryson, and even Owen's still kind of a young pup. I mean, he was a true freshman last year, and now he started every game for South Dakota State. And he's got, an old soul that way, where he's the leader, just a lot of leadership qualities coming from a coach's kid and different things that way. But he's still really only a sophomore. But I think we have a good blend of, age with some older guys that we recruited in the portal, some young guys we took that were committed to us from South Dakota State, and adding Harry as well, who will be jumping in the mix here. It's been a really good blend.
I want to talk about some of the guards.
Yep.
We were just talking about Jay Sean, Jalen, Owen, Bryson Ball, young guy who you can see how good he's going to be.
Yep.
What do you like about your guard group? Is it that kind of balance of age?
Yeah, it is a balance of age. Like I said, and they're all super good dudes and they're competitive. Like Jalen and Jay Sean have kind of spearheaded that group just because, and Andrew too. Honestly, Andrew's in his third or fourth year of basketball. Like Andrew's been amazing. And they've been great vets for Bryson in that group, and Owens obviously he's not working out yet. He'll be back here in a couple months, hopefully. But Owens always had a voice, you know what I mean, from day one, and he's been on the sidelines and he's at every event, every individual, and the guard core, those guys bring it every day, and you kind of have to. So Bryson, you could see after week one, like he was kind of in survival mode with lifting and all the individuals. And then after the week 2, I think got a little easier for him. And he's kind of getting accustomed, and by August 1st, he's going to be in a way better place. His body's not going to hurt as bad with Dre killing him in the weight room. And but it's been a really fun group. They're really competitive. They cheer for each other. That's one thing that we kind of talk about at all times. Like, how do you impact winning? Like, can you talk your teammate into a shot? Like when you're passing, like, hey, Bryce, knock that down. Like something positive to continue, or like you're thanking guys for good passes after you make a shot. You know what I mean? And those guys have really flown into those roles and have kind of flown with it. And it's been awesome to be able to work with all 4 of those guys and Owen on the side too.
We had Coach Clinkin a couple weeks ago, and he said, one thing I know we're going to do is we're going to play fast. And then watching Jay Sean run some of the point right now, and just all of your guards are important in the pace of play on the offensive end. Yep. But man, Jay Sean, he's so fast, gets up and down the floor, really pushes the pace. And I was talking to him about his time at Charlotte. He said they ran kind of a Princeton offense. Yep. So it was, lots of cuts, very methodical. He is chomping at the bit to get into game action.
Yeah, no, it's with him, between him and Jalen, they've really, really adapted at the point guard role. And I think Jay Sean will probably play both. He'll play both combo guard more, you know what I mean? Whatever. And I think Jalen can play on and off the ball too. You know what I mean? Like in our system, as Clink runs our offense, like we want to play fast. You want to get a paint touch in the first 7 seconds of each possession, whether that's, we call it an EPA, an early pass ahead, where we're throwing it ahead and attacking, or we're throwing it ahead and throwing it into the post. But I think those guards kind of initiate it, on both sides of the ball. But Jalen and Jay Sean and Andrew have done a great job of just playing with pace, making sure that guys are getting acclimated to running wide, like we're emphasized. And like at the end of the day, like older players, and we talk about this all the time, like we want this to be a player-led team, right? We're there, like obviously we're coaching the whole time, but like if we can get to the point where like guys are not calling each other out, but like quote unquote just like telling guys like, hey, no, you got to run, and they can have like an educated talk. Those are the really, really elite teams. And that's something that we harp on as well as we're kind of continuing to go, and not being afraid to, call out a teammate, but doing it in the right way. And, sometimes you're going to have to put your arm around them. Sometimes they're going to need a stern kick in the butt, whatever that may be. But just continuing to grow, and that does take a little bit of time, but our guys are adapting well. You all keep the recruiting grind going. I know you can't talk about the individuals that are coming on campus this week, but you just mentioned how, every player that took an official visit to Drake in the last couple months committed. They're on the roster now. Now you're looking ahead. Yep. How much does, the relationship building shift now that you have more time? And, how do you pitch the recruits that are on campus this week in this, day and age when, starting July 1st, universities can pay athletes directly? Yep. No, I think at the end of the day, like how we've always done it, like we want to recruit high school guys. We're going to have a blend of transfer portal and high school kids, but like we've always talked about, like we're trying to probably bring in 2 to 3, like 3 high school kids a year, preferably. and build it that way. And like, obviously, are you going to have to recruit some transfers? Yes. Like, that's an obvious. But like, even this year, like, we didn't go out and just recruit 11 transfers. You know what I mean? Because like, that's really hard to fit all that together. So, you know, like we've always said, we'll recruit good people with high character, right? That are selfless, caring. And then obviously you have to have a certain skill set, but it's one of those things where it's time and diligence of calling a lot of people, you know, checking behind every rock, seeing, you know, trying to get to know them over time. And traditionally we recruited guys for two plus years, you know, when you're at South Dakota State and other places. And it's one of those things now where we're going to still try to do it the same way and try to bring in some young guys every year. And then in the spring, see kind of where the roster's at and implement it from there.
Yeah, you all have had a track record of, you know, recruiting kind of under the radar guys. I mean, the most recent, you have, you know, not only Mayo, but Baylor Shireman at South Dakota State. You can go back to I don't know if you were around for Mike Dom, but I mean,
I was not, but Mike was the same way.
Yeah.
Doug Wilson, I mean, he's a Des Moines guy.
Yeah,
he
Doug
had like one offer out of Kirkwood.
Yeah, he snuck out of here.
Yeah, so
up to Brookings. How have you guys done that?
Yeah, you know, like I said, we take a lot of pride in just like doing it over time. You know what I mean? Developing relationships over time, and then just trusting our eye and what we believe in. You know, I think that's really important, and knowing that we're all on the same page with it. And we don't just all like, it's some staffs will just like, he's recruiting this guy and no one else talks to him. We all talk to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, we all want our staff to get to know each recruit that we have that way. And then Hendo's obviously does an amazing job developing relationships with guys. So that's kind of how we've been able to do it. And sometimes, you know, like Baylor, I think he had 0 scholarship offers, like besides us. And then he committed to us early in his junior year and comes to South Dakota State for 3 years and developed. You know, as freshman, he only shot 28% from 3. Like, he was a good player as a freshman, but like he had room to grow, and he took advantage of it. You know what I mean? In his sophomore year, he got better, and then junior year, boom. You know what I mean? He's a player of the year. You know, so it's one of those things where we spend a lot of time with our guys in the gym, you know, when it's the season, when we're in our 20-hour week period where we can shoot extra with guys. We spend a lot of time with just getting shots with guys and sharpening the iron, and whether that's touch shots for bigs or maybe free throws for bigs or guards, just 20 to 30, just like quick 20 to 30 minute things. And I think it's really helped over the years to kind of develop some of the guys' skill sets and confidence at the end of the day. Well,
at this mid-major level with the challenges of pay to play, I mean, Drake, you can spend $20 million these days. That far exceeds the Drake total athletics budget. So we're not going to be playing in that world. So it does have to be, as Brian Harden, director of athletics, says often, we have to be a developmental program in all sports. And that's a good reflection of how that's happening in men's basketball and how it could continue to happen here. Final thing before we let you go, we talked to Klink a couple weeks ago. He's like the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
You're like the defensive coordinator. What's going to be the mindset, the identity of this defense?
Yeah, you know, like Klink probably talked about, he's offensively, we want our guys playing free. We want them playing, you know, obviously confident, having with a swagger. Well, defensively, it's like we got to play a little more gritty at times. Now, we got to be gritty offensively too, but it's one of those things where it's multiple efforts, like that with things we talk about, like sprinting back in transition, getting set, being in our gaps. We're a little bit more conservative defensively, where we're not in like passing lanes or we're not pressing the whole game. Now, we'll take some things away scout base if we feel like there's sets that we can blow up, but a lot of it's more in our gaps, one-on-one, guarding our guy and being there for your teammate, right, at the end of the day. And, you know, we preach multiple efforts. We preach togetherness, communication, all that stuff. One-shot rebounding, like rebounding's huge defensively, so we're not giving teams 2, 3, 4 attempts at it. But I think at the end of the day, you know, our teams have been good, honestly, on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. And it's just something, like I said early, like we recruit offensive guys and then we hold them accountable because they're tough kids on the defensive end too. And our guys have taken a lot of pride on both sides of the ball over the years.
Awesome. Well, we got a long way to go until November, but the foundation being set right now. And Tram, appreciate your time. Full disclosure to everybody, I screwed up the first conversation with Tram. I have no
Way to run
idea.
it back.
Yeah, I no idea what happened here, but lucky me. I get another half
awesome.
hour with you, and really lucky for our fans that they get to hear the conversation with you, because I think fans are going to like you as a person and like what you have to say about this team.
Awesome.
So appreciate
I really, really appreciate it. We're super excited to be here at Drake. It's a super special spot, and gonna fight like heck to keep the trajectory going the right way.
We'll keep it going. We'll
Let's
keep it
do it.
going. Thanks, Tram.
Thanks.